Welcome to Something to Wrestle With.
Something to Wrestle With.
Bruce Prichard. Well, you know.
Tamara wants to know whose departure from the company had the biggest impact on the product.
Probably, without question, probably Razor and Diesel. And not just them leaving, but them appearing at WCW in the timely manner that they did, in the way they did.
Chad wants to know, did Bruce ever think this podcast would get him back in the WWE?
Well, Conrad, you know, when you and I started talking about this and we were going through it, and you remember, I said, fuck it. I'm never going back there. Yep. Let's do it. Let's just go for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the answer to the question is no. If anything, I thought it would drive a wedge even further between me and the WWE.
But, you know, now. Two-time. James wants to know, we've always heard about a section of the tape library that is marked, do not view, copy, or destroy. Any insight as to what's actually inside that section?
I didn't know there was a section that says do not view, copy, or destroy.
A lot of people believe that that's where Owen's accident is. That there's some sort of set of tapes that have been marked to not watch, copy, or destroy, but they maybe feel legally obligated to own.
I've never heard of that, so I really can't comment. That is the first time I have ever heard of that. I think that's probably more of an urban legend than an actual fact.
Horror Movie Barbecue wants to know, besides Bobby Heenan Jr., were there ever any other potential characters discussed for Bruce that wound up not making it on TV?
There were, yes. I was going to come back basically as Bruce, the real person behind Brother Love, with dark hair to manage The Undertaker at one point. There was the time that I wanted to do the other one with the Ultimate Warrior, where the Ultimate Warrior got me into shape, and till where he discovered me as that I was actually truly Brother Love. So those were the two that were serious, and everybody likes to show the stuff online, I guess, in whatever matches where I used to go down and collect hardcore materials after matches, and you'd see me pick things up in the background and run up to the backstage area. The idea behind that was we were going to do an auction, and I was going to be the guy that was doing the auction. Kind of a sleazy character, but this basketball was used, you know, these two basketballs were used in this hardcore match, and you can get them now. Bidding starts at $50, and do a thing online to do an auction site of ring used stuff.
Well, there you go. This is a fun one here. It's from the same guy, Horror Movie Barbecue. You know, I love the belt talk, and he's got a fun one that I think we get asked a lot. Now, I can't wait for you to set the record straight. What happened to the King of the Ring title belt from 1995, and why wasn't it used on TV?
There was no King of the Ring belt from 1995. Is that the Mabel one you're discussing? Yep. You're asking about?
Yeah.
Mabel had that made personally for himself. It was not made by us, and it was something that he had made for his own personal collection that he used in Independence, but there was no King of the Ring belt ever made.
Chris wants to know, no disrespect to Mark Henry or the Bushwhackers, but why did they get in the Hall of Fame before Rick Martel or Demolition?
Matter of choice. And the people that...
Demolition is suing. We're not going to... You don't get to sue us and then we put you on stage in the middle of that active legislation or active lawsuit.
Yeah, that too. But it also, before that, even before they were suing, I think that Demolition is probably someone that would have warranted a spot in the Hall of Fame. It comes down to a matter of choice and timing as far as where Vince is at that point, what he thinks is going to work for that class.
Well,
so Martel will be in. Martel will definitely be in.
Eventually Demolition will be too. Eric wants to know, what's your favorite Dusty Wolf match?
God, the one that we didn't get to have, which was Dusty Wolf against Zeus, and Dusty Wolf traveled the country with Zeus, basically picking him up at the airport, checking him into the hotels, and getting him from town to town. At the same time, there was talk of having Zeus destroy someone on television, and that would have been Dusty Wolf because he trusted Dusty, and Dusty was a good guy from San Antonio. And so that's my favorite one, is the one that never happened. Thank God for Dusty.
Greg wants to know, what's the story behind the Brother Love theme? Who sang it, and what was Bruce's reaction when he heard it?
Jim Johnston is the one who wrote that. Jim Johnston is the one who put it together. His office for many, many years, not many, many years. Yeah, I guess it was many, many years, was in a church in Greenwich, Connecticut. So he was in the basement of a church in Greenwich. And I think that Jim just used the choir, the church choir, for some of that. But that was all Jim Johnston, and I absolutely loved it.
Oh, man. What a great song. Eric wants to know, Bulldog follow-up after hearing last week's praise of Harry Smith. Please compare and contrast Harry and Davey Boy.
Well, I think Harry, as crazy as this sounds, Harry is huge. He's probably like 6'2", 6'3". He's a big kid. Davey, I don't think, was 6 foot.
Yeah, Davey was 5'11".
5'11", yeah. And Harry's just much taller and has a great look. And I think that Harry will probably be a star in this business. He's obviously doing stuff in Japan, doing very well for himself. They're just different. And I'd like to see Harry get a shot as a single in the WWE. But you never know. I think they're very similar, but I think that Harry has more potential, frankly, than Bulldog ever did.
Harry's billed at 6'5". Davey was billed at 5'11". Harry's 32. He's going to turn 33 later this year. Do you think there's still time left? I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, that's passed him by, but AJ Styles was older than that when he got a shot, but maybe AJ Styles was a different performer as well.
I think there's plenty of time for Harry to have a run and have a good run.
All right, let's get to another one here. Alvaro wants to know, what was the reaction of people inside and outside the WWE when Mr. McMahon introduced the McMahonism, the segment at the church and the tag team with Shawn and God?
Ted DiBiase about had a coronary. Ted being a very religious man, and Ted has his own ministry now. I think that the initial reaction was, come on, you're not really going to do this. And Vince is adamant, hell, we're not. Who says I can't wrestle God? Beat him. Sometimes, man, you just got to go through with the exercise and hope that he sees it a different way when it actually comes to fruition. But I learned my lesson on Katie Vick and God. Sometimes that's not always the best way to handle Vince. I remember Shane and I going into the church when we shot the vignettes in the church. And Vince, we even had Vince do the thing like Al Pacino in the holy water, which did not get over good in the church. But, man, sometimes you just got to go with it and say, okay, here we go. I think most people didn't believe it would actually take place.
Sarah wants to know, when the WWF bought WCW, was there any talk of bringing over Das Wunderkind, Alex Wright? I fully admit I only wanted him there because he was super cute.
Well, Dave Silva, if he wants to ask those kind of questions, he should just go ahead and call me and ask me. But I don't really remember. I don't remember. All right. I don't know what the hell happened with Alex Wright during that time, because Alex Wright is someone I could see Vince, that we would have wanted because he spoke German and that crossover. So I don't know that he was a part of that, but I could be wrong.
Gabriel wants to know, when the IC championship was retired in 2002, was it originally supposed to stay retired forever?
Of course, everything that happens, this is it, the last time I ever want to hear about it. It was, because we felt that we had too many championships at the time. That was the ideal.
Joe wants to know, you were supposed to tell the full Terry Taylor watch story on the Brother Love show. Can you tell it here?
No, but you know what? If you come to one of our live shows where nothing gets out and our audience at the live shows respects that, when we come near you, I'll tell it there.
And I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed in that answer, but we try not to admit to crimes here on the show. Yes. Brett wants to know.
Well, we try. Yeah, we try not to put anybody in jail, and
as a rule, we try not to talk about crimes. Brett wants to know, what was everyone's reaction backstage to the night DX mocked Shane and Vince on Raw in 2006? Shawn's imitation of Shane's dance is priceless.
It was priceless, and it was one of those where everybody is daring them to do certain aspects of the other's personality. Oh, you won't do this for Vince. And I think everybody was highly entertained with him anytime that you get to do a parody, but especially when you get a parody of the boss and have fun making fun of Vince. You go, God damn it, I don't sound like that. I think everybody was happy as shit, laughing our ass off at it.
Liam wants to know, in Bruce's opinion, who was the best wrestler from the territory days that didn't make it to either the WWF or Jim Crockett Promotions?
Well, as far as national goes, I'd have to say Wahoo McDaniel.
No, Wahoo was all over JCP.
He was all over JCP, but before they went national.
What about Brody?
Okay. Who?
Brody?
Brody definitely is somebody to be up there. Gino Hernandez, another one that was pretty much just over in Dallas and died way too soon. Brody would have been one of those that would have been great to have for Vince's company, definitely in a run with Hogan. Holy shit. That would have been huge money.
Joshua wants to know, why did Shamrock leave the WWF?
Ken wanted to go back to MMA fighting, and Ken felt that he was still young enough, kind of like, I guess, what Brock may be doing here coming up soon. Ken felt that he wanted to fight some more. He wanted to get back in the octagon and prove that he wasn't washed up. And that was Ken's passion. Ken loved to be in the octagon fighting.
Dismal wants to know, what does Bruce think about former world champions winning the Intercontinental title or United States belts? As a fan, this drives me crazy. It's like watching a guy fight for a demotion.
No, I think anytime that you're fighting for a championship, hopefully it will mean something. And if it's someone who is a former world champion and you can tell the right story, then hopefully it's going to make the championship mean that much more.
To me, I've always, especially in this era, maybe not 30 years ago, but now I view like the different belts, the Intercontinental, the US, the Universal and the World. So there's like 4 major men's singles titles. I sort of like to think of them as almost like boxing belts. So this is like the WBF and this is the IBF and this is the blah, 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 blah.
That's a great analogy because I think that they do have equal importance.
Right. Mick wants to know, why didn't the Widowmaker gimmick work for Barry Windham in '89? And why was his run so short?
When Barry came back and first of all, I think that the Widowmaker would have worked huge. And again, guess whose idea that was?
That was yours.
Yeah, it was. I loved it. And I stole it straight from Dusty about the Widowmaker, baby. And actually, no, I take that back. It was Dusty's analogy that I used for the name Barry Windham. And the Widowmaker was the bull of the wood. He was the baddest bull. He was the one bull that couldn't be ridden. So in the rodeo, that was a big deal. I thought the name was cool, the Widowmaker. Barry came in, and once again, I think the travel and everything that came along with it for Barry at that time in his life didn't fit his lifestyle, and he didn't want to be there. And Vince liked Barry a lot. Said, you know what, Barry, if you're unhappy here, I'm going to let you go. So Barry chose to leave at that time.
Man, what would have been? Sean wants to know, if Warrior and Flair did not leave in late 92 or early 93, what would they have done at WrestleMania 9? That's a great question.
It is a great question. And I don't think that they would have worked with one another, because you talk about a clash in styles. I don't even know if Ric Flair could have made that one passable, so to speak.
So that would have been the plan, you think? Them wrestle to each other? They were headed to Flair and Warrior at 9?
No, I mean, from my vantage point, I don't know that we even really had a solid plan at WrestleMania 9 when everybody left in November. At least not one that I was privy to at that point. We were working, when I got there in September, we were working to Survivor Series, and then everything blew up with Bulldog and Warrior leaving. But I could have seen that being a logical progression, getting to Flair and Warrior, but it was never really discussed. I just think that would be a horrible match.
Michael Scott Moore wants to know, after the screw job, if Davey and Neidhart would have stayed with the company and not left for WCW, would they have remained as the Hart Foundation and have Owen take over as the leader, similar to the way Triple H did with DX after Shawn left? Great question.
Great question. Hindsight being 2020, I definitely would have done that.
Another great question from Michael here. Why did the WWE never recognize the history of the light heavyweight title from 1981 to 1997 when it was defended in Japan?
Because it was, in Vince's viewpoint, he wasn't a big fan of the light heavyweights or the cruiserweights. And that was really a Japanese, that was a New Japan championship that his dad would recognize every once in a while in the garden when Fujinami or whoever was holding that would come over and do their garden tour. But it wasn't really a WWE championship. It was a New Japan championship.
Ryan wants to know, what's the story behind Vince McMahon being a heel on Memphis TV in 1993?
Lawler had come in to do commentary with us, and Vince is a natural heel, man. He's just a natural heel. And Lawler says, gosh, Vince, you know, the most requests I get and the most people in Memphis want to see me knock out is you. So hell, I'll make a shot for you. I'll go down there. And that's how it all began. A conversation in the announce booth that turned into reality, and Vince going down there and getting a little taste of being a heel. And it was easy for him.
Man, we were off to the races after that. What a cool story. I can't wait to talk about that in long form sometime. You mentioned how 2002 was a cluster with injuries in the draft. At what point did you all feel like things were a bit more stable? 2003? This is from OK Fabe.
Well, yeah, because it seemed like it took a year, and then you get a year, you get some of your stalwarts back. And then it seems like they would almost drop in cycles. You'd get 2 back, 3 more would drop. And after a while, you just you become immune to it, and you just have to fight through it, and you can't look at it as low times and high times. You have to just work all the way through it and make them all as high as you possibly can.
Gabriel wants to know, did you produce or have any stories of the WrestleMania 7 George Steinbrenner debate that's now been deleted from the network?
Really? That was some damn good stuff. I did have a lot to do with that. Vince and I did the majority of that with Steinbrenner, and that was some fun stuff. I have no idea why the hell they would delete that thing, because it was some entertaining stuff with Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner was a huge fan and loved working with us.
Chris writes, chat us up, Bruce, about Jericho's clandestine meeting with Vince at his house. Who in the company knew about it? Was Jericho really under contract with WCW when it happened? And if so, were there concerns of a lawsuit? Why take the risk with this meeting?
Well, it was during a time that Jericho could talk, but at the same time, Jericho didn't want to have it get out, nor did Vince. And it was Jerry Briscoe who put all that together. And Jerry Briscoe was the one who got everybody in the right place at the right time. So without Briscoe, I don't know that would have happened. Briscoe and Jericho are neighbors. They live pretty close to one another, and nothing wrong with having lunch with somebody and seeing how the hell you're doing to find out what their situation is.
Upon his return to the company in 1995, why did Charles Wright have the Papa Shango gimmick dropped in favor of Kama? And if Shango returned, was he slated to be paired with Mr. Backlund?
The Kama gimmick was something Vince felt it was more realistic and wanted a more realistic thing. He liked Charles Wright, and Charles was training a lot of the MMA stuff and felt that MMA was getting over at the time, and it could be a different way to introduce him. So he thought that the Papa Shango gimmick could only go so far, and felt that Kama was a more realistic gimmick that he could go further with. Little did we know that the more realistic gimmick was the Godfather, and that's the sumbitch that took off.
Christopher wants to know, whose idea was it to book Cornette with Mantar, and why was it dropped almost immediately? Could have been a good storyline if Mantar turned babyface on Corny, setting up an angle with Camp Corny.
Oh,
wait, was that Kamala's penis right there?
No, that was Mantar's. Oh,
what if Mantar had a conversation with Kamala's penis? What would that sound like?
the last one was Kamala's penis, in case you didn't know that.
What was the noise at the end there? Yeah, what was that?
Just so, at the end.
Okay, let's move on.
Don't you at the end?
Sometimes.
Okay, well, or sometimes you just fake it.
Jonathan wants to know.
Sometimes it's a working. Just saying, sometimes you can be tired and you put all you can into it. Sometimes you just got to work that.
No.
God damn, was it good for you?
That must be.
What the hell was the question?
Let's just keep going. I don't want to circle back. Jonathan wants to know, did wrestlers get a whole script of a Royal Rumble put in a conference room, or were they individually handed their part? I would love to see an old script from an old Royal Rumble posted online.
No, there was a order of entrance and then an order of elimination, and guys just could look at that. And if anybody was in there for a long period of time, that they had a lot to do. It was basically laid out. Okay, when Mil Mascaras comes in, you do this. When Michael Hayes comes in, you do this, what have you. But there was it was a lineup is all it really was. Lineup, come in this order, you go out in this order. When this guy comes in, this happened.
Jonathan also wrote, who do you think got paid more for Rumble 91? The model, who lasted more than 50 minutes, or Jake, who lasted around 15 minutes?
The model.
Ken wants to know, when Hey, It's Conrad starts his own wrestling promotion, will he choose Bruce Prichard or Eric Bischoff to be his head booker? Well, first of all, I'm not starting a wrestling promotion, but secondly, I would use Bruce Prichard. Sean wants to know, whose idea was worse, Katie Vick or Brawl for All?
Ooh, that's a tie. Both horrible in their own right.
Fun question here that we've gotten several times before. Let's see if you can give a different answer, because it feels like you might. The rumor and innuendo is that Sean was supposed to face Brett at WrestleMania 13. If that wound up happening, who would Stone Cold have faced that night?
WrestleMania.
Can I freestyle? I would freestyle that the original plan would have been Brett and Sean. Now we're barring injuries here. Austin Pillman.
Austin Pillman would have been absolutely huge. Yes. But again, the original idea was to go with Brett and Sean there. And I think that looking at the whole 9 yards, especially when you kind of get into that summer with Pillman and looking at what you have and looking at that babyface build for Austin, that would have made perfect sense.
JJ wants to know, did Hacksaw Jim Duggan suffer a head injury that made him behave the way he did? And did he carry the object that caused said injury?
The big injury that Hacksaw Jim Duggan had was an injury at the Sam Houston Coliseum in Houston, Texas, in the Mid-South Universal Wrestling Federation, where one-man gang and Duggan were working, and Duggan caught his head on the corner post. And I swear, man, it was almost a quarter of an inch deep and about 4 inches long. They had to staple his head up, and that was one of the worst injuries I've ever seen. But no, Hacksaw didn't have that kind of head injury. The hell kind of question is that?
Well, he means for the gimmick, with the ho.
For the gimmick? No, he just was ho! Precursor to the ho train.
What's wrong with you?
A lot. There's way there. Is that one of the questions? Who asked that question?
Conrad from Huntsville wants to know, what's wrong with you?
Well,
Nikki wants to know, not a rib, what accommodations were made to deal with Hogan's insecurities with his receding hairline? I think we've talked about the side texting, I think you call it, and the bandana, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't Hogan's insecurities. That was more Vince wanting to protect the image of Hulk Hogan. Hulk knew he was bald, and Hulk did the Rogaine gimmick and did all that stuff that you do when you have that receding hairline or that male pattern baldness. But, that was Vince's stuff originally to protect his attraction. Keep him young, put hair on his head.
Michael wants to know, did Vince ever consider buying the NWA?
Vince basically, when he bought Georgia Championship Wrestling in the early 80s, he did. And then he sold it back to him.
Sean wants to know, and this is a fun question in hindsight, curious on Bruce's take. If the WWE had signed Sting instead of Warrior in 87, do you think Sting would have been a bigger star than he was and had the same longevity he had in WCW?
Yeah, I think Sting would have been a huge star. I think Sting probably would have even eclipsed what Warrior did.
And you think that's based on his ability to sort of get along with folks, or work rate, or
temperament, his willingness to learn, and everything else, his business acumen? I think that Sting definitely would have been a huge star with the WWE had he come over during that same time frame.
So now, do you think sports entertainment could do something with Kung Fu, combining arena worked Kung Fu shows, weekly television shows, working scripts, and 1970s Kung Fu movie entertainment into a giant program for the masses?
You know, we tried to do something similar to that with the WMAF, the World Martial Arts Federation, many years ago. And the idea was to shoot a children's show that would air on Saturday mornings. And it would have a Kung Fu storyline kind of arc, and you would have teams competing against one another, but they would all have backstories and what have you. And we got all the way through. We went through casting and the whole 9 yards, but never actually came to fruition. So that was talk. So pretty good foresight there, or hindsight, I guess, if you will.
Rob Cat wants to know, would a long-term or permanent WWE residency in Vegas work? And is it something that was ever seriously considered?
It was seriously considered when Vince bought the Debbie Reynolds Casino. The idea was to build the WWE Casino and to have matches there practically every night, but also to utilize some the old timers that were looking for something to do, to be greeters at the hotel. Every single day there would be an attraction of some sort, you know, on the wrestling ilk, to be able to have people go in and meet a legend and have matches there, move the developmental area out to Las Vegas so that you could have matches in front of a live crowd taking place every single night. So that was about as close as we came to a residency, was owning the casino.
Verl wants to know, what was your favorite restaurant in Chicago back in your traveling days?
Morton's.
Well, I didn't expect such a immediate answer. Well, when we go, you know, for our show next month at the House of Blues, is there one spot you want to hit above all else?
You know, I wouldn't mind going back to the Morton's right out there at Rosemont, because that was where we always went. They always kept it open late for us and took really good care of us there.
Flair loves Gibson. He thinks
Gibson's is another good one.
He thinks that's the jam, and I'm more of a Pequod's guy.
We hit them all. We're going to be there a few days.
There you go. Hoover wants to know, if the Brawl for All were to happen today, who would win? God, I would hope I wish the Brawl for All had never happened. Who would win amongst the current crop of talent in WWE? I would have to say probably, if you got to throw Brock Lesnar in there, I'd throw Brock Lesnar in there. I mean, why not?
He'd win.
Welshman wants to know, how often do tag team partners argue over who would be the one to get pinned, or conversely, who would be the one to make the pin? Any memorable stories? No, I can't really remember. I think that most of the time tag team guys had their roles. It was, you know, Robert Gibson was the guy that came in and made the save. He got the hot tag, and Ricky was the one that sold the whole match. And then Robert would come in for the hot tag, and usually Robert would be the one to take the fall and Ricky would go over. So I think tag teams, for the most part, they kind of have their determined roles. And probably there's sometimes guys get butt hurt, but none that I can think of off the top of my head, because being a tag team, you know your role, hopefully. Palm wants to know, top 5 guys to never be a WWE champion. Well, I say this just because we recently, you know, did the show on him. Roddy Piper, although I don't believe that Roddy Piper needed the championship. Ted DiBiase. These are probably all going to be heels. You know what? This is going to sound really crazy, but Dusty Rhodes. I would love to have had Dusty have that run and just be that champion and be the guy that Vince saw him as so many years before that. Besides that, those are 3 pretty good ones. No, do I need to do 2 more? I mean, we can keep it rolling here. Jason wants to know, was there ever an angle that you proposed that ended up shitting the bed for one reason or another? I love that expression, by the way. Shitting the bed. You know, there were oftentimes angles that we would propose. For example, we would propose something for 3 months
that it may shit the bed the first week and Vince would rush it from 3 months to 3 weeks. There was a lot of that. I think the Hulk Hogan, Mr. America angle is something, in Vince's opinion, that shit the bed, but I think it only shit the bed because they didn't understand it. And it shit the bed big time in a way that, when Hulk got fed up and didn't like his WrestleMania payoff, that he was gone. But it shit the bed, and I felt it could have been huge.
Dave wants to know, how would both of you book Roman Reigns to finally get over with the fans as the top babyface? I'll let you take this one, Bruce.
Well, first of all, I would just have him go in and convincingly beat Brock Lesnar, and then I'd shove him down everybody's throat until you liked it. There's an old saying.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I would.
Really?
Actually, I really and truly would. I think that Roman, being what people would consider a heel and going that direction, where Roman had basically embraced the reaction he's getting from the crowd and kind of shit back on the crowd in the same way, would make him one of the biggest baby faces in the industry. Because then as soon as he loves what they're doing, I could see people really loving that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mark wants to know, did anyone pay attention to the aftermags?
No. I'll tell you a funny story. Way back in the days, olden days, territorial days, there was an article that said Lawler beats Giant. And it was a story about Andre the Giant wrestling Jerry Lawler and Lawler winning by disqualification. But the headline was, the headline was Midget beats Giant. And it was about Jerry Lawler getting a victory over Andre the Giant. And Vince Sr. was really pissed off about that, and really pissed off at the Memphis territory for having Lawler, quote, go over Andre the Giant, even though it was a DQ and a schmoz finish that, it didn't matter. But that was we didn't pay any attention to them. They had great pictures, but it was a fictional magazine. So nothing to pay attention to.
DJ Some Skills wants to know, it's a wrestling barometer. I need an all-time Survivor Series match, 4 heels and 4 baby faces, any wrestler in 1987 and after.
So you want the top match would be, let's do Hulk Hogan,
right?
John Cena.
Okay.
Undertaker.
Okay.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And your 4 bad guys are?
Roddy Piper.
Okay.
Heels. Macho Man Randy Savage.
Thank you. I was waiting on that one.
Andre the Giant.
There's one big one. He's going to be across the ring from Austin.
The Rock.
There you go. Fun stuff. Carolina Kid wants to know, why was Ludwig Borga chose to end Tatanka's streak, and why edit the chair shot?
Well, Ludwig Borga, man, we were planning on big things for Ludwig. We thought Ludwig, being a heel and being that international, foreign menace, so to speak, was going to come in and really be something big for us. So he was destined, the guy, Native American, Tatanka. So a foreigner coming in and taking the Native Americans' undefeated streak away made a whole hell of a lot of sense. And Ludwig, unfortunately, just didn't pan out as the worker and or as the human being.
Dan wants to know, you allude to matches that Vince hated to the point where he, quote, made them do it again or sent them back out there. Is that meant literally? In other words, so they actually walk right back to a live crowd and do the same match again? If yes, isn't the crowd confused? Feels like it's hard to keep kayfabe in those type of situations.
No, it's very easy. You send somebody out and say, hey, I'm not satisfied. Send the heel out and I'll kill you. Come back. You make a story out of it and you make it make sense. But yes, we've done that plenty of times where either there was a spot or the finish was screwed up that Vince wanted them to go back out and do it all over again so that you can edit it together, get everybody in the same spot and make it work for television wise. The live audience, a lot of times for the taped television was a prop, and they were there for background.
Chris wants to know, the Young Stallions seemed to get a solid push in the fall of 87, but then fizzled in 88. What happened?
They were getting a solid push as a team to beat and gave them some wins on TV so that when we beat them on house shows and everywhere else, that it actually meant something. They were both young guys, and there was some hopes for Jim Powers and Paul Roma both to be single stars in their own right. So it was a way to kind of get them exposure on television, get them some wins. When they get beat on the house shows, it means a little more for the team that beat them, but also hopefully spin them off into singles.
Ted Baker wants to know, which building in Memphis did you enjoy the most and why? The Pyramid, the FedEx Forum, or the Mid-South Coliseum?
Ooh, Mid-South Coliseum just had so much friggin' history. So I'm partial to the Mid-South Coliseum just because of the history, and you can walk in there. The other ones were just arenas.
Adam wants to know, what's the worst match both Bruce and Conrad have ever seen, and was Bruce a part of that booking? So let's talk about that. The worst match you ever booked.
There are so many of them.
It seems like a good idea, and then the bell rings. Does one come to mind?
Oh my God. Well, you first.
Well, I don't know what you booked, so this is a question.
Well, no,
for you.
yeah, but they asked what's the worst you've ever seen. What's the worst one you've ever seen?
That's hard for me to say.
Oh my God. Any of the Brawl for All stuff was absolutely god awful terrible. You know, you go back and you look, Undertaker and Giant Gonzalez.
Well, there's a good answer. Blake wants to know, any good stories with the foreign commentary teams, like them saying the wrong thing or giving away a finish? Do they all say the same thing as the English team? Of course not.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
We keep our fingers crossed and we hope that they're saying the correct thing, but no, they don't. They do their own thing, and we hope that they're doing it correctly.
Brian wants to know, did Bruce ever have any interaction with Bruiser Brody, and what did he think of him?
I had a lot of interaction with Bruiser Brody in Texas during the territory days, coming through working for Paul Bosch, and I always found Brody to be a hell of a good guy, smoked a lot of dope, and was just a really nice guy. He could be an asshole. It could be very difficult to deal with if he didn't like you, but he could separate too. Like, I worked for the promotion, and if he were mad at Paul, he would be mad at Paul and not take it out on me. But he was a hell of a draw, and as far as a human being, I thought he was a pretty nice guy.
Zach wants to know, why do you think the WWE now uses UFC stars like Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar as special attractions, but when Ken Shamrock joined the Fed, he was in the trenches day in, day out as one of the boys?
Because that's what Ken wanted to do, and that's what we wanted to do at the time. We wanted to bring Ken in to be on the roster and make him a part of the WWE. And I think that, you know, right now Ronda Rousey is on the roster and being part of the WWE, and Brock Lesnar's Brock Lesnar. Ain't gonna be another one like him for a long time.
It's also worth mentioning the UFC didn't really hit that next level popularity until 05, 06, 07, 08, 09. 09 was sort of a banner year for them, and everything that's happened after 09 has been much more mainstream than whatever was going on in the UFC in 94, 95, 96.
Yeah, Meyerowitz still had it back then.
Well, and it was sort of underground and new and even banned for a little while. It had not really blown up the way it did with the Ultimate Fighter in 05.
Correct.
Sean wants to know, another WrestleMania 15 question I'd love to know the answer to. How come on the network they blank out people saying WWF but not World Wrestling Federation, and they allow the WWF logo to be shown?
That's one you'd have to ask the damn folks over at the network. I still don't understand the rules on saying WWF or World Wrestling Federation and when the logo can be seen and when it can't. I don't know, but it's a legal matter.
Yeah, we get that question a lot. Like, why are they bleeping out WWF or World Wrestling Federation on the network show? Well, clearly it's part of the settlement that they have and the agreement that they have with the World Wildlife Fund. I don't know exactly what that is. They haven't told us not to say WWF or World Wrestling Federation because they don't tell us not to say anything. So we say whatever, and then they just bleep it out. Of course, here it's not a WWE product. Now, what's the difference? If WWE airs it on their own network, then they're sort of allowing it. Well, they're not allowing us to say it here because we do what we want. And, you know, if it was on the network, technically someone at the World Wildlife Fund could have a claim. Mark wants to know, were you there when Freddie Prinze Jr. was there? If so, was he actually on the creative team? Any good stories?
Freddie Prinze, yes, I was there when Freddie Prinze was there, and Freddie was a whole hell of a lot of fun to work with. Freddie got his job by getting up in the meeting with Stephanie McMahon and whispering in her ear, imagine you're on a subway and you're looking at people on the subway and you realize that this person is a part of the WWE universe, and that person over there, they have another vision of the WWE universe, but look down, seated 3 seats over, that person is part of the WWE universe. And his skills as far as selling this storyline of a subway full of the WWE universe and all of them seeing it through different eyes is what got him the job. But Freddie was creative as hell, and I thought he did some good work while he was there.
Adam wants to know, when Andre was arrested in Iowa, the paper said his manager posted bond. Would that have been kayfabed and Heenan showed up, or was it someone like Tim White?
It was probably someone like Arnold Skolin. Yeah, it was probably Arnie just showing up and paying whatever fine there was and moving on.
Ian wants to know, do you remember any matches where one guy was supposed to win but lost because he just couldn't get his shoulders up on time, whether he was lazy or hurt or whatever?
Yeah, that happens all the time. I mean, there's a lot of those that have happened, and they've happened on live television. And shit, to say anything off the top of my head because it happens so often, that would be kind of difficult to do.
Sean Hammond wants to know, when WrestleMania is over, does the creative group map out the next year? How is it done?
We try to, you try to map it out even before you get to WrestleMania. You try to have an idea of, okay, we're going to have this WrestleMania. What are we looking at next year's? Anything that we want to plant a seed here for next year. If not that, you do try and start thinking about WrestleMania as soon as the last one is over, so you have something to work for.
Francis wants to know, if you got the nod for an induction into the WWE Hall of Fame, who would be your top 5 people to induct you?
You, Gerald Briscoe, John Layfield, my brother, and Undertaker.
I'm on the top 5.
Yeah.
How about that? Sarah wants to know,
you brought me back. You basically made me relevant again. I love you.
No, dude, you always had this in you. You just had to have somebody.
You helped bring it out.
Yeah. Well, I saw it. That's it. Sarah wants to know, in 1994, WWF had a float in the Macy Thanksgiving Day Parade, and the 1994 Survivor Series was the day before. It's not like it was on the East Coast. It was in San Antonio. Do you know if anyone was upset having to fly all the way over to be in the parade?
They all were. Not only were they were pissed and they were freezing. Oh my God. It was, God damn it, we've got to be on the float. And everybody's down there, and I think it was ice and like they had an ice storm or something right beforehand. And it was miserable, absolute misery. And I remember Pat thinking about, this is so great that we got the float in the Macy's parade. That's so great. But no, I think everybody was pissed with the exception of Vince, who, was bundled up warm and he was home. So what the hell? Yeah. Misery, hatred.
Fuzz wants to know, was there ever any talk of doing a Brother Love show during the Attitude Era?
No, there wasn't. And I don't know that Brother Love really would have gotten over in that, in the Attitude Era. I think it was too gimmicky, if you will.
Fuzz wants to know, hypothetically, if Bruce could be a manager for any wrestler, past or present, who would it be?
Bray Wyatt.
Well, there you go.
But I'll tell you the guy, this guy, Lars Sullivan from NXT, that I saw Sunday, man, holy cow. I'd love to have somebody like that. He's going to be a huge star.
Stevie wants to know anything about Tony Atlas becoming Saba Simba, such as when Roddy Piper acknowledged who he was on Superstars. He said something like, "That's Tony Atlas. What's he doing?"
Oh boy. Let me see how it, okay. My first day back in the WWE, it was at Hershey Coliseum after the first time that I'd been fired. So that's 1992, September 1992. And I'm sitting in the arena, and Vince comes and sits down next to me, and we're talking, and he says, you got to see this, pal. Look at this. Saba Simba. Tell me what you think. So they have the music, and Saba Simba comes down in the outfit, and he does the whole big presentation. He takes everything off, and we're looking, and Vince says, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it looks like Tony Atlas barefoot." And it was just dead silent, because when he came out in the elaborate outfit, it looked really cool. He's got all this headgear and all these feathers and all this stuff. And then he takes it off and he's wearing blue trunks. He's barefoot and it's just Tony Atlas.
Right.
Saba Simba was the guy that you saw coming down the aisle and all this flamboyant shit. And I said, man, I don't get it. And that's why that reference was made, because we couldn't get trunks and we couldn't get a ring outfit in time. And Vince wanted to put him on TV that week. So he said, you know, Tony Atlas, who now wants to be known as Saba Simba. They made a story because I just didn't get it.
Because it's fucking stupid. Greg wants to know, how would Jim Cornette sing? Ken wants to know, whose idea was it to have the refs run away from Undertaker when he glared at them, and who did it best?
Well, that was just something. It was just something that happened. That wasn't something we said, okay, when Undertaker glares at you, run away from him. It was a natural deal that whoever the first referee, you know, Earl did it really well, or Joey Morello really did it well, but it was a sign of respect and like kind of, I don't know what the hell this guy is here, but we tried to underplay it a little bit, but just show some fear there and not knowing what they have.
Well, it was awesome. Nick the Knight wants to know, does Bruce Prichard have any good wrestler court stories?
I never had to go to wrestler court for anything, thank God. But, you know, I think that the idea behind wrestler's court was to be sure and get enough booze for everybody in the locker room to enjoy and have a good time at the end of the day. So the only rider I think that ever went into wrestler's court was Brian Gewirtz, and Brian didn't know that he needed to bribe the judge with enough beer for the entire locker room, just not those on the jury, if you will.
Frank wants to know, Bruce, can you finally speak on why Simon Dean hates you?
I don't know why Simon Dean hates me. I honestly, God, have no idea. I was not a huge fan of the Nova character or whatever character that he was doing. I don't think it was Nova. Whatever character that he was doing in developmental, wasn't a big fan of it. Didn't think that it would get over, and which is why we came up with the Simon Dean character, was a way to try and get his personality over. I have no idea why he hates me. You'd have to ask him that. Normally, I know why people hate me. That one I don't.
Is he the guy who created, as far as you know, the bullet reference? The bullet reference being, I'd take a bullet for Tom, I'd put one in Bruce.
I think he's the one that said it. Yeah.
Chris wants to know, I'd love to know if Jeff Hardy was supposed to win the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania 24. It was advertised as an 8-man match until he was suspended. Of course, CM Punk wound up winning.
I think Jeff was slated to win it.
Michael wants to know, why did the WWF go away from subtitled pay-per-views like In Your House It's Time and Beware of Dog?
To make them all major pay-per-views, and the In Your Houses were cheaper and they were shorter. So the decision was made to go ahead and do all of them major pay-per-views, charge more, make them an hour longer. Financial reasons.
Michael wants to know, there's rumor and innuendo about JBL and Joey Styles getting into a physical confrontation. Any details?
No, I wasn't on the flight. It was an overseas flight. I think it was a tribute to the troops, where JBL was ribbing Joey Styles, and then Joey Styles punched him. That was about it. Much ado about nothing.
Allegedly, you know, he felt like JBL sort of crossed the line with a comment about his family. He popped him. Nobody expected Joey to fight back, and it was sort of over after that, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like I said, much ado about nothing. You know, Joey was fine. Bradshaw was fine. Everybody's like, yay. And it was over.
Arturo wants to know, who booked the Tim White lunchtime suicides?
Oh my gosh. That was a Vince McMahon creation that he just thought, after Tim had broken his shoulder and we did something, and somebody mentioned that Tim was really depressed over not being able to be in the ring refereeing and what have you. And somebody jokes like, yeah, you know, you look at Tim White, and he was doing an interview about something. And I said, Timmy looked so depressed in there. It looked like he was just going to blow his brains out. And Vince was like, I love it. We should do that. And it just became a running joke that Tim would find different ways to off himself. You never saw it on camera, but the inference was, you know, Tim's going to go and end it all right now. And he would find different ways to end it each and every week and not be successful, which would depress him even more.
Is that one of the worst ideas ever?
Yeah, pretty much.
Michael wants to know, was Jericho ever really penciled in for the WrestleMania 2000 main event 4-way? Jericho talks about being on the initial poster, and I think it's even the artwork on the network too. or was this all to just throw people off from it actually being Foley?
You know, it also may have just been that Jericho's picture was on there, and not even being a part of the match. And that happens a lot of times too, where creative services will put something out, or that, you know, sometimes people put it out online that it's not real. But in this case, it was something that was put out by creative services, and it may have been something that had been discussed early on, and it was real preliminary early artwork that just got out there.
Steven Neppa wants to know, whatever happened to the witch chick that Vince would always talk to at the end of the shows in the 80s? Who was she?
The witch chick? I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Stephen Gibbs wants to know, why was Randy Savage announced as Randy Macho Man Savage, and then it changed to Macho Man Randy Savage later on in his career?
Semantics, folks. That just is a change, and that's just something.
In fairness, it does feel like something that Vince would sort of have a burr in his saddle about, like, God damn it, he's not Randy Macho Man Savage. He's the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, I can see that. And probably Macho just, Macho Man, freak out. And to get that in front of the name so that we can refer to him as Macho Man. First name Macho, last name Man.
Read the boots, bitch. Kirk wants to know, how was entrance music played over the house speakers back in the 80s? Did you guys have separate cassette tapes for each wrestler? And any funny stories about the wrong music being played?
Well, usually played it over a house PA system. And
no, but like, what was the delivery? Was it a cassette? I mean,
it probably was a cassette.
Yeah.
God, for any time, most of the time for television, obviously it's all played through the truck, and that was all on 1-inch tape. The actual music was, but for house shows, it was probably a cassette tape.
Any funny stories about the wrong music being played?
In Europe, all the time, guys used to go in and change the tapes or sit with the guy, the music guy, when they would come out, and
they're doing it on fun. I mean, they're doing it on purpose for fun.
Yeah. Midway through, send the Undertaker out to Real American and just different things like that.
Jeremy wants to know, has Bruce ever taken a Stone Cold Stunner?
Never. No. Well, I take that back. I took a Stone Cold Stunner in the dressing room of Ford Field to show Donald Trump how to do it.
Matt wants to know, any fun off the wall hardcore match stories? In 98, Al Snow and Bob Holly were doing some crazy backstage stuff.
I think the most fun that I had is the stuff that we did with Gerald Briscoe and Crash Holly in a jump area. It was a play area for kids. They had a bunch of trampolines and ladders and slides and different stuff that we went in and had Jerry Briscoe beat Crash Holly for the belt in there. It was a lot of fun.
Jeremy wants to know, DDP had a very uneventful run in the WWE after being a top guy in WCW. Had age and injuries caught up to him at this point, or did Vince simply not see anything in him?
I'll take a lot of the blame for that, because I thought that the way to bring DDP in would be something with the Undertaker, and we did the Sarah gimmick. That was my idea. Didn't work, and I think I had one vision for it and Vince had another vision for it. So a lot of that stuff I shot my way, and Vince got it back, and I'll never forget spending 3 days in Texas shooting vignettes, bringing them back, and Vince just looking at me like, this sucks. How the fuck can I use any of it? And we had to basically recut them and have DDP do voiceovers on it. And I lost the fire for the gimmick. I think Dallas lost fire for it. And I don't know, anybody's heart was really in it. So that kind of was snake bit from day one.
Fuzz wants to know, in the $1 Million Man episode, it was said that Vince would not tell Ted the gimmick before he signed. Was there ever a time when Vince told someone the gimmick before and then they went and used it elsewhere?
No, because usually he wouldn't, unless it was embellishing the gimmick that they had.
Right.
Normally Vince wouldn't share what he had in mind for him until they were on board.
Dwayne wants to know, why was Coco Beware never used in any angles or feuds with anyone?
He wasn't?
I mean, you can't name any, so it doesn't really say a lot that he was. Anthony wants to know, was there ever any serious thought in 1997 of working with FMW to have sort of an exploding deathmatch style match in the WWF?
We talked about it, and I went over there to take a look at it. And after seeing it, I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen in my life. and not something that American audiences would get into and or buy. So it was quickly scrapped. The aura of, oh my God, an exploding bomb match and all this stuff sounds cool until you actually go there and experience it. And experiencing it was not a pleasant deal. And I don't, it's you go back and look at their crowds, they diminished the more and more they did it. So no.
When WWE went to HD in early 2008, why did Raw, ECW, and SmackDown share the exact same stage?
For cost.
Andrew
Money.
wants to know, would Bruce consider an on-air role for WWE programming in the future?
Sure. If the money was right and the spot was right.
DJ wants to know, what was the purpose of making the Hell in a Cell taller in 2006 for DX versus McMahon and Big Show?
I just think that it was when they redid the cage that the dimensions were taller, and so utilize that, promote it.
Mark K. Fave says, referencing a selling tour overseas, meaning the sold tour, how did the overseas tours work when it came to marketing and promotion? So I think he's asking about when you have like a sold show.
A lot of that, well, obviously we would market it on our television product that we were coming, but usually the promoters overseas, they would take care of everything else as far as the marketing and the promotion for it locally.
Last one. Would Jim Cornette rather fly in a quote unquote death tube or ride in a car being driven by a running late Vince McMahon?
He'd probably rather get in the car with the running late Vince McMahon.
Well, we're going to be getting